Saludos a toda la afición de Lucha Libre Online. Este que les habla es Michael Morales Torres, integrante del equipo de Lucha Libre Online. Gente, tenemos el enorme privilegio de presentarles a nuestro invitado especial en la noche de hoy, representando a toda la gente de Irán, pero directamente desde Minneapolis, Minnesota, ex superestrella de la WWE, Ariya Daivari, llega aquí a Lucha Libre Online. Ariya, it is an honor for us to have you as our guest. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on here as well, too. I've been, I see a lot of Lucha Libre online on my Instagram and Twitter and stuff like that. So when you asked me to do this, I was like, oh, that's really cool. I see Lucha Libre online everywhere.
Thank you very much for your feedback and you know, for supporting us as well. We are big fans of your career and what you've done, especially on your WWE time. But every career has a humble beginning, and I want to know, you know, maybe as a kid or as a teenager, in what moment exactly did you knew that you wanted to do this for a living?
So me and my older brother, Sean, who, for those of you know, was also a professional wrestler in the WWE and in TNA as well, too. We were big fans when we were kids. You know, I was 8 years old. He was 13-year-old. It was the height of the Monday Night Wars, you know, so WCW versus WWE, and we were watching ECW all the time. So we were just right in that perfect mix of the late 90s professional wrestling. And man, we loved it. You know, we had all the action figures, all the video games, all the t-shirts, all that stuff. We were obsessed with it. And eventually, me and my brother, we started saying how we want to be wrestlers when we grow up. And eventually, when he became older, obviously he's older than me, so he got to wrestling first and he became a wrestler. But yeah, I would say I was about 12 years old when I started really thinking, like when I was a little kid, I said, oh, I want to be a wrestler. But when I was 12 years old, I started thinking like, oh, like I can actually make this happen, you know? So I know a few people have said this before, but that Stone Cold versus The Rock at WrestleMania 17, that was a match. I was 12 years old at the time watching that, and that sucked me in so hard that I was like, I want to do this when I'm older. I want to be a professional wrestler.
Perfect. I'll translate this briefly to Spanish. Ariya nos cuenta que su hermano, obviamente Sean Daivari, que estuvo en WWE, estuvo en TNA en diferentes partes, pues siempre le gustó esto. Él desde los 8 años de edad, como que le cautivó la atención, como, soy fanático de esto, me encanta. Pero cuando tenía 12 años, es que él dice como que, oye, yo puedo hacer esto ya para vivir, yo puedo hacer esto cuando sea grande. Llega una lucha de Stone Cold que cautiva su atención completamente, pero a los 12 años es el momento clave en donde él, más allá de pasar al sueño, se da cuenta que es posible hacerlo. Which actually leads me to my next question. Once you were 12 years old, that you knew that this was possible to do, what was next? What was the next step? Do you go directly to a wrestling school? Do you sit down on the internet and look for information? Like, what was the next step for Ariya Daivari?
So luckily for me, before I had to enter my independent career, I got to watch my brother do it firsthand. So I saw him in 1999. He found a wrestling school in Minneapolis, and he went and trained and did the indies and made it to WWE. By the time I started wrestling, a few people from his school had kind of broken off and done their own schools and stuff like that. So the same place wasn't open, but we did have a ring and one of the old trainers there. And then there's an independent wrestler by the name of the Anarchist, Eric Cannon. He did a lot of training for me, helped train me a lot, you know, kind of took me under his wing a lot. But yeah, I was in Minneapolis around 2007. It was my senior year of high school. I actually used to wrestle on the actual wrestling team in high school, and I did that freshman, sophomore, junior year. And by my senior year, you know, I did it because I think a lot of people said like, oh, it's wrestling. I should join the wrestling team because I'm a wrestling fan, but it just wasn't the same. It's not what I was into. So that's my senior year, summer going into my senior year of high school. I found the wrestling school in Minneapolis and I went and got trained.
I'll translate this. Él menciona que ya estando en el área de Minnesota había un luchador independiente que estaba entrenando. Él tuvo la oportunidad de ver a su hermano Sean y su carrera independiente y ver todos sus tropiezos, todos sus éxitos, todo lo bueno y lo malo. Pero no estaba la misma persona que lo entrenó directamente, pero sí había alguien que se llamaba Eric Cannon, que fue la persona que tuvo la oportunidad de entrenarlo en el circuito independiente. Y una cosa llega a la otra y otra cosa evoluciona y de momento ya este muchacho está metido en los cuadriláteros, tenía 17 años, estaba en su senior year de high school, un muchacho con hambre, lleno de vida y con ganas de hacer esto. Así que es bastante interesante este dato. You know, you've done many things in your career, but a thing that always caught my attention was the work you did for TNA in their Indian version. I believe it was Rinka King. How did that opportunity happen to you? Because you're a guy, as you mentioned, you are a first generation American. Your parents, moved from Iran to the United States. So US was basically your life. And for a moment to the other, you need to get into a plane and get to the other side of the world, to India. How was that experience for you?
So I believe my brother had just left Impact, or he might have still been there. I'm not exactly sure how it came about, but Jeff Jarrett was the one who came up with this whole Rinka King concept, and he wanted to use a lot of guys that he really liked from TNA, and then also some former WWE guys, as well as a couple extra independent talent. I remember my brother was the one who contacted me and said, "Hey, I think there's something big that's happening in India, a big wrestling show that's going to be kind of a offshoot of TNA." And they pitched us as a tag team, and they really liked it. I said, "Oh, great." And at this point, I was still pretty new in professional wrestling. I'd only been in 4 years or so. So this was my first time doing like a big production, something on TV. We actually had rehearsals and all that, and I was brand new to all that. I'd never done television wrestling at that point. I'd only done small independents around Minnesota at that point. So Jeff Jarrett's the one who set it up, and my brother kind of pitched us to be a tag team for it. And that was where we got to actually go and for the first time be a tag team together. And it was awesome. I mean, wrestling in India, because at that point, and I mean, obviously to this day, wrestling's still not like, there's not like a big promotion in India. So these fans, they were into everything and anything we were doing. I don't know if people remember, if they look up Rinka King, there's this scene one time where Scott Steiner went into the crowd and he was just kind of marching his way through the crowd, and the people were like running for the hills. Like, it felt like, I was like, well, like pro wrestling's real again. Like way back in the day, like they just they literally were running out the building because they thought Scott Steiner was going to get them. So it was a very surreal experience. It was very, very cool. It was a very fun time.
Ahora nos cuenta que la oportunidad de Rinka King de TNA, el programa de Jeff Jarrett, de hecho, fue a través del mismo Jeff Jarrett que surge la oportunidad. Su hermano Sean ya no estaba con TNA, pero lo llama y le dice, oye, algo grande va a pasar en India con TNA, una versión nueva, Rinka King, un mercado distinto, y nos quieren como equipo. Ahora llevaba 4 años en aquel momento en la escena independiente. Toca montarse un avión y llegar al otro lado del mundo. Y de momento se toma como que, ok, esto es enorme en India, la gente ama la lucha, no hay una empresa grande, pero el kayfabe es real. Cuenta el momento de una escena en específico en donde Scott Steiner se va al público y el público como que se emociona con, y ¡pum! De momento todo el mundo se va porque piensa que Scott Steiner los iba a atacar. Se volvió bastante real, le encantó trabajar en India, al igual que muchas personas que tuvieran tenido la oportunidad de estar en ese país. One thing is performing in India, and another thing completely different is the cultural barrier between countries. The language, the food, the people, everything is so different. For Ariya, the human being, how surreal was the experience for, to have the opportunity to work, to actually make a living on the other side of the world?
It was very cool. I mean, you're right. It was a completely different experience than I've ever had in my entire life. When we were close to landing, I remember Sanjay Dutt was on this trip as well too, and he was telling some of us guys who've never been to India, he goes, just know, like, everybody's going to stare at you because we all obviously stand out. I'm not saying I'm like a big guy or anything, but I'm kind of a bigger guy in somewhere like India, and Chris Masters was there and Luke Gallows was there, and we were just these, some of these big giant guys, so everybody was staring at us, and it was kind of weird because it was, like I said, there's so many people in India, so everywhere was so crowded, and people are just constantly staring at you, and it was kind of like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. But I've never been somewhere that was so like condensed and full of people like that, where I remember just seeing like families of 5 on one motorcycle, like just cruising down the street like it was totally normal, like nobody had helmets on. It was just like a whole family on a motorcycle, and like traffic there was crazy because there was just so many cars just going in and out. Like, it was something I'd never seen before and experienced, but it was one of the coolest things ever. And it's nice to be able to go to a completely different country and just learn about things and see how other people live, because sometimes you're just in your own little bubble the whole time and you're not even aware of how other people live on the other side of the world. So I was very grateful to not only get to do some wrestling, but get a very good life experience out of it as well.
me translate that. Ahora nos cuenta que una cosa es estar luchando en India y otra cosa es experimentar la cultura. Cuando ellos van aterrizando en el avión, Sonjay Dutt les menciona como que, oye, se lo tomen a mal, los van a mirar porque son distintos, son más grandes. Él dice, no soy el tipo más grande del mundo, pero soy mucho más grande que el resto de las personas que estaban allí. De momento todavía tipos como Chris Masters, enormes por ahí. Era algo distinto. La barrera cultural era interesante, pero él menciona una anécdota en donde había una familia de 5 en una sola motorcycle, una sola motora. Eran, o sea, el tráfico, la gente guiando de lado a lado. Fue una locura, pero fue parte de esa experiencia que le tocó vivir de la cultura india. Fast forwarding a little bit in your career, I mean, you've done many things in your life. You've done Ring of Honor, you've done Independence for a while, you did Ring of King, but there was a moment in 2016 that you were granted your first big chance. I mean, your first big chance was TNA, but this was a whole next level because it was in your same country in the United States. So WWE had the Cruiserweight Classic at that point. Who was the person that reached out to Ariya Daivari and say, hey, you're perfect for us. You're what we're looking for. Come here and work with us.
So I'll give you a quick little backstory about right before what happened. So I was extra talent at WWE, like a lot of people, a lot of independent wrestlers do in like 2013, I believe. And I went there and I had it was a blast. I knocked it out of the park. I got to have a tryout match for Regal. He really liked it. And then they put me in a dark match. It was me and another wrestler here from Minnesota against the Great Khali in a dark match that night. And then after that dark match, they came up to me and said, hey, we're going to send you to the Performance Center to do like an official tryout. So I was like, damn, I killed it. You know, I did a great job. So fast forward a few months, I ended up at the Performance Center. This is 2014. I'm there with Kevin Owens. That's where the camp he got signed out of. Like Roderick Strong was there, ACH, Rocky Romero, Willie Mack, a really star-studded group of guys. And we do the tryout, everything goes well, but unfortunately I didn't get picked. You know, I got told, this was March of 2014. They just said, sorry, you know, not right now, or I don't remember what the email said, but it was basically a rejection letter. So I kind of thought that was it. But I do remember William Regal telling me a long time ago, he said there's a special project that we're working on that would be for the network. And if it comes to fruition, you're one of my guys I'm going to use for it. I didn't know what he was talking about. It happened to be this cruiserweight tournament. So I thought my time with WWE was done. You know, I did the tryout. They said no. I said, well, I don't know what else I can do. There's nothing else I can show them. So I guess I'll just keep wrestling. And that's when I went to Ring of Honor and got to wrestle there and just kind of try to keep busy on independence. But then it was January of 2016, Canyon Seaman, he emailed me. And honestly, it was kind of out of the blue. Like I said, I thought my shot at WWE was over. And he told me, he said, hey, this is a one-time opportunity. We're doing a global cruiserweight classic is what it was originally called. And they said, we're going to do this in June. And like, we'll tell you more details in the coming months, you know? So to me, I was pretty shocked about it just because, like I said, I did a tryout. I didn't get signed. So I thought they were going to pass on me, but it seemed like it was just not at that moment in 2014. They need me. But then in 2016, they did want me for that classic. So that was a really, really cool deal.
I'll explain that in Spanish. Ariya Daivari nos cuenta que antes del Cruiserweight Classic, él trabajó como extra en muchas ocasiones para WWE. A William Regal le gustó su trabajo, hizo dark matches contra The Great Khali y una cosa llevó a la otra. Y le dicen, oye, vamos a hacer algo contigo. Vamos a darte un tryout en el Performance Center para que tengas la oportunidad de que te firmemos. ¡Ah, excelente! ¿Qué tengo que hacer? Llega allí, hace el tryout y de momento el email, donde en el email le dicen, mira, sí, pero no en este momento. O sea, básicamente era una carta de rechazo porque en ese momento no estaban interesados en él o no tenían nada para él. Y él como que pues no bajó la guardia. William Regal le dice, hay un proyecto que estamos desarrollando que si se concreta para el WWE Network, you're one of my guys. Tú eres uno de mis muchachos. Yo te voy a querer ahí a ti. Perfecto. Llega el momento de la oportunidad y de momento lo llaman y era para el Cruiserweight Classic. 2 años después de mucho sacrificio, ocurre la oportunidad de estar en el Cruiserweight Classic, which actually leads me to my next question. The Cruiserweight Classic was something that caught everyone's side. It didn't matter where you live. You have Lince Dorado, there was Ariya Daivari, Cedric Alexander, Rich Swann. There were so many people from all around the world and representation for everyone. Everyone, felt represented. For the first time in many years, I saw the Puerto Rican flag in the WWE with Lince.
Yeah.
So for you as a performer and for all the Persian community out there, how much did it mean to you and to them that you were representing not Minnesota, but the country of Iran, the country your fathers moved from.
Yeah, it was very cool. You know, I really enjoyed the concept that they were doing a global cruiserweight classic because there's a lot of talented, very talented independent wrestlers just here in America. They could have very easily done a 32-man tournament of just guys here in America, but the fact that they wanted people representing different countries to make it really, I mean, it is called World Wrestling Entertainment. That's what WWE stands for, you know, so they wanted to get people from all over. And, you know, there were some people who thought like he's from Minnesota, he's not really from Iran. And I said, well, I have Iranian heritage. And unfortunately, I don't think there are any that I know of any actual professional wrestlers from Iran right now. So I think the closest thing was going to be me. Sorry, I just had something pop up.
Don't worry.
Sorry, 1 second.
Don't worry.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, so it was really cool that they wanted this to be, like I said, everybody representing kind of different nations and stuff like that. And that's what I think made it special. That's what, like you said, I think got so many eyes on it because now there's people from Scotland who want to cheer for Noam Dar, like you said, Puerto Ricans who want to cheer for Lince Dorado. And then, yeah, my social media obviously got a much bigger reach once I got to WWE. So that's when I started getting a lot of followers and comments and people actually from Iran saying like, hell yeah, we're so excited for you. This is awesome. Like, go in there and represent Iran, you know, and I got eliminated the first round. You know, I did my best, but no, it was really cool. Like I said, adding like I said, making it a global thing, people from all over. That's what I think was like the key ingredient to make this Cruiserweight Classic like very special. And like everybody in the whole wrestling industry was talking about it.
Aaron nos menciona que la clave de esto fue que fue un torneo global. Él dice, puedes poner un torneo de 32 personas en Estados Unidos nada más, solamente en USA, más nada, y eran un montón de gente, pero de momento tienes a Noam Dar de Escocia, tienes a Jack Gallagher representando a Inglaterra, estaba Kota Ibushi representando a Japón por ahí, estaba Ariya representando a Irán, Lince Dorado de Puerto Rico, etcétera, etcétera, y llega el momento en donde, ok, lo exponen a él, va representando a Irán y su social media empieza a agarrar el número. Comentarios de personas de Irán, como que en aquel momento no conocía a ningún luchador iraní completamente, así que lo más cercano era él. Y había gente de momento que de Irán le comenzaron a escribir, mira, felicitándolo, estamos contigo, ve, gana esto. Como él dice, me eliminé en la primera ronda, pero di lo mejor que tenía y fue una experiencia muy, muy bonita. After that, something really interesting happened, and I'm talking about 205 Live. Nobody expected a full program made of cruiserweights on WWE, broadcasted every single week, live most of the time. So for you, how much it meant this? Because maybe 20 years earlier, this wouldn't have been possible. Yeah, we had guys like Juventud Guerrera, Rey Mysterio, among many other guys. But full program 20 years ago, never thought, no one thought that this was going to be possible. So how did it feel for you?
It was amazing. You know, that's one thing I always tell people, no matter what their feelings were towards 205 Live or what they thought about it, I said, like, they created a show just for the group of guys that they hired. Like, that's crazy. Like, my whole life, I always wanted to be in the WWE, but I assumed, you just go to Raw or you go to SmackDown. I never once in the wildest dreams that I think a show would be created for me and all the other guys, a special show that's forever etched in history. 205 Live, this was a thing in our wrestling industry, like a new thing. And especially for a new thing to happen in the WWE in 2016, they've kind of seen it all, done it all, so to do something completely new. And at first they were doing like the rules with the handshake and all that stuff. It was really cool. It was really surreal, especially because when I did the Cruiserweight Classic and I kind of asked, hey, is there any other work I can do? And they said, oh, this is just a one-time deal. Maybe we'll bring you back for the Cruiserweight Classic next year. And I was kind of like, damn, all right. But then I kept getting called to come do some Monday Night Raws. And it was just it was literally like random bookings I was getting. Like I was still an independent wrestler, but I was just wrestling on Monday Night Raw on Mondays all of a sudden. And then one thing led to another and we got a contract. And then we started hearing rumblings about, like, I don't know if 205 Live was always the plan or if the Cruiserweight Classic did so well that they said, hey, we can probably have a whole new roster of guys just like this who are doing all this cool stuff.
I'll translate this. Él menciona que 205 Live, tal vez no se sabe ni siquiera si era el plan, pero llega a ocurrir. Cuando acabe el Cruiserweight Classic, él ya me pregunta, pero ¿hay alguna oportunidad más? Tal vez te trajemos para el año que viene, para el otro Cruiserweight Classic, como que, pues, está bien, ahí va la oportunidad, yo espero. Pero de momento, lo llaman. Mira, tenemos algo en Raw este lunes. Excelente, llego a Raw. Y a la otra semana, tenemos algo en Raw este lunes. Ok, vuelvo a Raw. La otra semana, Raw otra vez. Y es como que era un independent wrestler, como él dice, luchador independiente, pero estaba trabajando todos los lunes en Raw. Y una cosa llevó a la otra y de momento, boom, tenemos la división Cruiserweight en aquel momento. Y fue algo que le brindó oportunidad y trabajo a muchas personas, incluyendo a Ariya Daivari. Let's take another plane. Let's go to the other side of the world again. And I'm talking about Saudi Arabia. Greatest Royal Rumble. We read what you stated on another interview regarding you didn't like what you were given to perform along with your brother because of what it represents and everything. But having the opportunity to perform in an absolutely new country, it's gotta be a thrill for you. So how was the whole experience of performing in front of the Saudi crowd?
It was a crazy time, I'll be honest with you. Like going over there was really cool. Like I never seen that side of that part of the world specifically because unfortunately the only time I made it back to Iran, I was pretty young. So I don't have a lot of memories from it, just kind of like old photographs and stuff like that. So I hadn't really been to a Middle Eastern country in a while. So going to Saudi Arabia and seeing all that was really cool. They treated all the wrestlers very well. Obviously the performance I was in that night wasn't the most popular thing, I got to admit. And it was one of those things where you kind of learn from those mistakes. People always like to push the envelope a little bit too much. And as talent, I still felt kind of new at the time. I was only about a year and a half in. I wasn't really trying to say no to stuff. And like, we didn't know the extent of how big the Saudi Arabia stuff was, but we were told it's a very big deal. So as a new talent, I'm not going to be saying, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. I just kind of did what I was always told to do, by my promoter, by the guy who's paying you, so we went out there and did it, and unfortunately it did not go over well. So that's why I put out an apology, because I didn't want to offend anybody. I never meant to disrespect anybody in Iran. I never meant to disrespect anybody in Saudi Arabia. So it kind of took on a life of its own, but that's why I felt the need to, so let me just put out this apology, try to smooth things over. And yeah, it's one of those things that it was an unfortunate situation. I think it was a bad call to do that. That particular angle, but they say WWE is entertainment. They're just trying to have these shock and awe moments, and that was definitely one of them.
Perfect. Ahora nos cuenta que obviamente es bueno tener la oportunidad de luchar en otro país completamente distinto. Era la primera vez que luchaba en esa parte del mundo, porque él fue a Irán, pero él estaba muy pequeño, tiene como que fotos y esas cosas, pero no tiene mucha memoria. Llega el momento, le toca viajar a Saudi Arabia, Greatest Royal Rumble, sabemos la historia que ocurrió, que estaba él y su hermano Daivari, y el resto es historia. Toca, como él dice, poner una disculpa pública por aquella historia que ocurrió en ese show para tratar de suavizar las cosas. Su intención de él dice nunca fue ofender ni a la gente de Irán ni a la gente de Saudi Arabia, pero es parte de, fue una historia que no debió haber ocurrido y que salió definitivamente mal, pero la WWE es entretenimiento y querían hacer algo distinto y algo shocking. Él fue parte de esa historia. You did many things in the WWE. You were part of NXT, 205 Live, you wrestled on Raw, you wrestled everywhere. And unfortunately, after a while with the company, the company decided to part it separate ways because of, and I quote, budget cuts, even though they had $973 million profit last year. So, let's not talk about how that situation. Where is Ariya Daivari heading to at this moment? What do you have in your head? What do you want to do as a wrestler? I mean, you were signed really young to the company because you started, but you got signed quickly compared to many of the other talent. For you as a performer, but also as a human, what's next? What do you want to pursue in life?
Well, I definitely want to continue wrestling, and that's what I will be doing. My 90-day no compete is over on September 23rd. So I already have some bookings lined up. Wrestling companies are thriving right now. You see places like New Japan, Impact, AEW, MLW, NWA, like GCW, like all these promotions, they're really, really thriving right now. And it's a great time to be a wrestler, and there's so much new talent around. So my plan is to keep on wrestling. Just because I'm not with WWE anymore, I said this in my statement, I've been wrestling for 15 years. 10 years of it was before the WWE. So I know how to be an independent wrestler. I've done many shows. Like, I think there's some guys who've only done the WWE that if they ever go to the independents, it might be like a
Yeah.
culture shock to them a little bit of what it's like sometimes. But like I did that for 10 years and I loved every minute of it. You know, going to the WWE was a real like WWE is like luxurious wrestling. You know, you got trainers and big locker rooms, all this kind of stuff. Like I know what the indie grind is all about, and like I'm ready to get back to it and keep going. So my wrestling career is far from over.
Ariya dice que la carrera de él no ha terminado. La WWE fue algo que él hizo por un periodo de su día, 5 años, pero antes de eso él hizo 10 años de Independent Pro Wrestling, sabe lo que hay allí, sabe cómo se maneja la cosa, las compañías de lucha libre todavía están floreciendo, es algo que quiere continuar y definitivamente lo vamos a ver en las diferentes plataformas. A todo promotor que le interesa contratarlo en México, Puerto Rico, Argentina, Chile, Panamá, en toda Latinoamérica, solamente tienen que ir a un lugar y es su booking email es daivaribooking@gmail.com, daivaribooking@gmail.com, así que a todos los promotores en México, en todas partes, esto es un caballero que definitivamente deberían tener en su roster, daivaribooking.com, y a todos los seguidores pueden ir directamente a sus redes sociales como Ariya Daivari, directamente en Instagram y en Twitter, ahí pueden echarle el ojo a su trabajo. Ariya, I interviewed Matt Cardona recently, formerly known as Zack Ryder, and he stated something really interesting regarding the talent that got recently, you know, parted separate ways with the company. And at the end of that statement, he started, you know, he mentioned like 3 names, and one of them was Daivari, Ariya Daivari, as a person that he thinks it would be a good fit to Impact Wrestling. Is Impact Wrestling in your plans? Is AEW in your plans? Ring of Honor? Like, are you pursuing something in specific, or are you open to anything in terms of wrestling?
In terms of wrestling, I'm definitely open to anything, but it's not as simple as just saying like, this is where I want to work and then I go work there. You know, you have to go talk to some people and just kind of get things sorted out and figured out. And to be honest, like the wrestling business is always evolving. It's always changing. And I kind of feel like until this 90-day no compete is over, you still just kind of got to wait because, you know, if you're a really, really big star, maybe you'll have multiple contracts just constantly waiting for you and stuff like that. But I think for most people, you just kind of got to see. But yeah, working for Impact would be amazing. AEW, like I said, the companies that I listed, you know, AEW, New Japan, Impact, MLW, NWA, they all have really good wrestlers. And honestly, the big part of it, it's guys I've never wrestled before. That's one thing that I'd be very excited for working for any of these companies because I get to wrestle some new guys. Because unfortunately, one drawback of 205 Live is you're kind of wrestling the same guys over and over and over. There's so many talented dudes that are in all these companies that WWE passed up on. I've seen some of the guys who are in Impact now, who are in AEW now. I saw them doing tryout matches and stuff like that, assuming they were going to get signed, and WWE passed on them, and I never understood why or for what reason, but now they're thriving at all these other companies. So it goes to show you that there are many other places to wrestle. So I think it's awesome that Zach thinks I'd be a good fit for Impact. You know, it's a great place. My brother was working there as a producer before he started his gig back with WWE again, and he always said great things about it. You know, I know Rich Swann works there. He's a very good friend of mine. I'd definitely like to see him again and wrestle with him as well too. But like I said, at this moment in time, I'd say I'm pretty open to any company. You just kind of have to see what the deal is. You know, everything is a negotiation. You got to see what they're offering, how many dates, all that kind of stuff. So at this point, you just kind of have to maybe wait till your 90 days is over, and then you can really start negotiating and talking and figuring out what the next step is.
Ahora nos cuenta que él está abierto a bookings, obviamente una vez expire su cláusula de 90 días, pero no es una empresa específica, no es tan fácil como decir quiero trabajar aquí, voy. O sea, obviamente hay unos procesos que seguir, hay que trabajar para ello, hay que contactar a ciertas personas, pero que sí, Impact Wrestling, AEW, Ring of Honor, New Japan Pro Wrestling, AAA, o sea, la empresa que sea, que él esté interesado en Ariya Daivari, simplemente tiene que ir directamente a su correo electrónico, daivaribooking@gmail.com, y ahí puede nuevamente hablar con él, puede sentarse a hablar diferentes alternativas. Él dice, yo vi muchas personas que estuvieron en el Performance Center de WWE en tryouts, que la empresa no firmó, y es como que, ¿por qué no lo firmaron? Que ahora están con AEW, que ahora están con Impact Wrestling, gente que WWE dejó pasar, pero llega el momento en donde, ok, toca él tener la oportunidad de construir su carrera desde cero nuevamente, y eso es exactamente lo que busca hacer, pero está abierto a todas las oportunidades dentro de la industria de la lucha libre. Ariya, before we go to our last question, I wanted to thank you very much for your time. You know, it's an honor for us to have you here as our guest. last but not least, if you watch out, if you watch back your career, you started 15 years ago. You've done many things in your career that highly probable that 8-year-old kid that started watching wrestling didn't imagine was going to do at one point of his life. So do you feel happy with the career you've had and the career choice, in terms of job option, being a wrestler, having the opportunity to perform in WWE, Saudi Arabia, India, Canada, the US, like you perform everywhere. So do you feel happy with what you've achieved in your career so far?
Oh yeah, absolutely. One thing that I always kind of remind myself, like I had this dream of being a professional wrestler and for the WWE, and I achieved that at 5'10". Like that's not all the guys who I looked up to were big giant dudes, Stone Cold and The Rock and Triple H and all these dudes. Like they were all big men, So me having this dream, obviously sharing it with a lot of friends and family, they always kind of go, everybody wants to support your dreams, but I don't think he's going to make it, and I understand because I wasn't a big guy. I wasn't a big football player, a big collegiate wrestler or anything like that. So the fact that I was able to do all the things that I've done and wrestle in the WWE for 5 years, like I'm beyond happy. I'm very happy because I did my younger self right, little Ariya, 12-year-old Ariya, just wanted to be a professional wrestler. And I think I did it and then some, whether it's also getting like action figures and being in video games, all these extra things that I never really thought about. I just wanted to wrestle for the WWE. And while I was in the WWE, all these cooler things kept happening where you get your own show, you meet some great friends. Like I said, you get cool merchandise, action figures, t-shirts, you travel the world, see all these sites. Like it was beyond my wildest expectations, wildest dreams, So now I'm very satisfied with everything I did. But like I said, it's not over yet. I shouldn't say I'm not fully satisfied because there's still a lot more work to be done. I still plan on staying at this for a long time.
Ahora dice que logró estar en la WWE midiendo 5'10". Antes era como que los tipos como Stone Cold, como The Rock, tipos grandes, altos. Y tener la oportunidad de concretar su sueño midiendo lo que veas como que, voy a ser luchador de la WWE, te deseo mucho éxito, pero como, no creo que lo logre, como él dice, I don't think he's gonna make it porque medía 5'10", pero lo logra, concreta ese sueño completamente, y las cosas extras en la vida que también tiene, que salir en videojuegos de WWE 2K, tener figuras de acción, viajar el mundo entero haciendo lo que le apasiona, se siente feliz con lo que ha logrado, pero ojo, su carrera no ha acabado, él tiene muchas cosas que está persiguiendo en su vida y va a buscar atraparlas, y esa es la parte interesante de esto. Ariya, we are so interested to see what you're going to do next once the non-competition clause expires. We are always wishing you success in both your career and your personal life, and once again, thank you very much for your time.
One thing I do want to say too is that I've never had the opportunity to wrestle in Mexico or Puerto Rico either. So those are actually two places, especially Puerto Rico, because I know how much history is there. When it comes to wrestling, I'm a big history buff. So seeing some of the legends of our business who've gone through Puerto Rico and you hear all the stories of wrestling in Puerto Rico, like it's something I've always wanted to do. So to the fans of Lucha Libre online, I'm hoping that someday I'll be able to come out to either Mexico or Puerto Rico and meet all those people and get to perform for all of them as well too.
Ariya dice que quiere llegar a Puerto Rico y a México a luchar. Son dos cosas que quiere hacer en su vida. Uno, principalmente Puerto Rico, porque ha escuchado las historias, el talento que ha pasado en él y quiere ver a los fanáticos en persona. Así que los promotores, daivaribooking@gmail.com, en Puerto Rico, en México, hay muchas empresas. Este hombre necesita visitar estos países. El talento es increíble. Solamente resta que cuando acabe su cláusula de no competencia, comiencen a escribir, denle una llamada y créanme que él va a estar acá con nosotros eventualmente. Y más que decir, este fue Ariya Daivari y Michael Morales Torres para Lucha Libre Online.